So to get started, hi, I'm Ashley. I'm the chair of the D&I Committee, and I'm going to be one of your hosts for the conversation today. I'm a first year, and a fun fact about myself is that I miss my dog. She's back at home, but I miss her. And the reason why I joined the D&I Committee is because I wanted to make the university a place that everyone can call home. And I'll pass it on to my other host for this conversation.
Hey guys, I'm Divine. I'm a fourth year at Lehigh. One thing I miss is football. I haven't been able to really play football in almost a year now, so I miss that a little bit. And the reason I joined D&I is because I feel like there's a clear lack of diversity and inclusion on campus, and it can definitely be fixed.
So I just dedicate the slide to show you guys like the things that we miss. That's my dog. Her name is Fiona. And then that's a picture of Divine playing football. I would now want the rest of my D&I committee to introduce themselves. So just starting with Arnav, if you could just unmute yourself and show your video as well.
Yeah, hi, I'm Arnav. I am a first year. I'm from Irvine, California, which I am currently at right now.
Now, Hugo.
Hello everyone, my name's Hugo. I'm a second year. I'm on the way back from work. That's why I'm in the car.
Now Ugochi.
Hi everyone, I'm Ugochi. I'm a sophomore and I'm from Newark, New Jersey.
Now we have Brendan.
Hi everyone, my name's Brendan. I'm a senior and I'm from Columbia, Maryland.
And last but not least, we have Taiji.
Hi, I'm Taiji. I'm a sophomore from Norristown, Pennsylvania.
And that makes up our D&I committee. Okay, so now that we got through introductions, we're going to discuss a few definitions that are going to be important for all of us to know and understand to tackle the conversation that we're going to have today. So first off, we have diversity. Diversity is understanding and honoring the ways people are unique. Then we have inclusion. This is welcoming all people and ensuring they have equitable access to opportunities, benefits, and services by creating environments of mutual respect where everyone is valued and supported. Another important term is anti-racism. This is actively working against racism. So I do want to make the distinction that anti-racism isn't the same as not being racist. So in order to be anti-racist, you have to be actively working against racism in that you are making the active effort to not be racist. Then we have discrimination, which is treating someone differently or less favorably based on specific characteristics. So an example of discrimination would be in the past how women or people of color were not able to vote based on their gender or race. So that is an act of discrimination.
Okay, so the fifth definition we have is equity. I'm sure you guys have all heard of it. And that's really just a guarantee of fair treatment, access and opportunity and advancement for all individuals. And it kind of gets mixed up with equality. You can see in the bottom picture I put in there. Equality is more like giving everyone an equal opportunity, just kind of giving everyone the same chance they can get at achieving something. But equity is kind of making up that difference that some people have, because obviously we all know in society some people have more of a chance to accomplish something than others. So that's what equity is. Microaggressions. I'm sure you guys heard of it as well, but it's obviously just a brief common exchange that can communicate hostility, disrespect, or a similar negative message about an identity. So I can give an example to that. Is I remember when I was in high school, when I first came in as a freshman, a lot of the kids thought I played basketball or I jumped high and that I ran fast. It's kind of ignorant, and that was kind of just solely based off the color of my skin, which isn't directly disrespectful, but messages like this can be perceived as disrespectful and can communicate negative messages about an identity. Ashley had an example as well.
An example that I personally experience is that people assume that I'm supposed to be good at math just because I'm Asian. So that's like a microaggression. that they're saying to me because of the race that I am.
Right. And the last definition we have here is calling in. This is different than calling out. Calling out is if someone said like a racist or a stupid, ignorant comment, and you respond aggressively and start to yell at them, saying that they're a bad person for saying such a thing. That's calling out. But on the other hand, calling in is kind of if someone says something racist or ignorant, you respond in a calm and patient manner, and you inform them that what they said is wrong and that they shouldn't say that because of X, Y, Z. That's calling in. And the point of doing that is just to educate others about why something shouldn't be said.
So we want to practice calling in during our discussion today. So moving on. Sorry. Okay, so I'm going to kind of explain the goals of D&I. And so in brief summary, the goals of D&I for this year are to make Senate a more diverse and inclusive organization. So that's our goal for diversity and inclusion within Senate. And then our goal for the greater Lehigh community is to work to make the university an anti-racist institution.
So our goals for today for this discussion is we want to understand Senate shortcomings through internal and external perspectives from everyone else, and as well as discuss the changes that can be made to help transform Senate into a more diverse, inclusive organization.
If some of you may recall, the D&I Committee sent out a survey to receive feedback from current senators, past senators, and general public. We asked them about the main issues that they saw were presented in Senate and some personal experiences they want to share. So after looking at all the responses we got, some of the main issues that were present in multiple responses were the ones listed here. So the lack of representation of Black, Indigenous, people of color, and women in Senate, the lack of diversity and inclusiveness in Senate, inequitable prioritization of recurring issues, lack of tangible action done about proposed problems, inequitable election process, disconnect between Senate and the community, and lack of communication about activities and accomplishments. So now that I've kind of outlined the main issues that were present within the survey, I would like to open the floor up for discussion. If anybody would want to elaborate on any of these points, add any points, or share personal experience, that would all be really great right now. I would just like to emphasize that if there are general public members here, like you're here for a reason. We greatly appreciate an external perspective that you guys can provide for us. So feel free to participate in these conversations as well. So you guys can all just use the raise hand feature and we can go ahead and call on you to start sharing. Victoria?
Sure. I'll start us off. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. I want to touch on the inequitable election process bullet point without too much information behind it. I'm not the one who submitted to the form, but this is something that came up in conversation a couple of weeks ago when I was discussing it with another administrator. And the election of a president for Student Senate, I think, should be a popular election where the entire student body should be allowed to vote, not just Student Senate. The whole of the student body on Lehigh should be allowed to choose the president for the Student Senate because the president is supposed to represent all of us. We could change it to function so that the Senate works as kind of like the Electoral College, where we have almost the final say, but there should also be a popular vote in order to draw in the rest of the Lehigh community. That's just an idea.
Thanks for the input, Victoria. Would anybody else like to either add a main issue or talk about the main issues that are already present? Michael?
The one that really I feel like we are still struggling with, especially this semester is the lack of tangible actions done about proposed problems. And this is just on the unfortunate fact that as in the Senate, we dropped the ball. We had the great town hall meeting about inclusion after George Floyd was murdered. But after that, as a body, we didn't really do much to follow up. We didn't even we didn't even draft a resolution to make clear statements to the administration about what the student body wanted, so we could actually hold them accountable to things and really speak on behalf of the student body. That is something that should have been done over the summer, immediately after that meeting. And unfortunately, that was put on pause until we got a new Senate together. And because we waited so long, at that point, we really missed out on the opportunity to show the student body that we are serious about actually representing their voices and their concerns. Because as we heard in that town hall, a lot of people don't feel like Senate does a good job of voicing those concerns, doesn't do a good job of representing them. And we dropped the ball on putting together any sort of response in light of the Black Lives Matter town hall that we had. And now we need to make sure that the administration has sent out vague email after vague email about what their plans on diversity and inclusion. Now we know that they're going to do some sort of study, but they really haven't committed to anything. They haven't committed to a timeline. They haven't even proposed clear, actionable outcomes that they want out of it. And as a Senate, if we're going to take our role as leaders in this area seriously, we need to do a better job of holding the administration accountable in this regard. And that goes beyond just responding to the issues of the day. It's using our power to pressure to make sure we get things like representation in the next president of Lehigh that will hopefully be a woman of color. Because our school is predominantly white, and we really can't be an inclusive body until we get that representation in places of power.
Thanks, Michael. Would anybody else like to elaborate either on Michael's point or on any of these bullet points? I would also like to emphasize that feel free to use the chat. We will also be saving the transcript of the chat to refer back to. Declan?
Yeah, I want to kind of build off what Victoria had about the elections in like a different area. But when we had our elections committee for senators for this new Senate, so it was the end, it was basically the middle, right before COVID of last semester. One of the things we were really trying to work on was how can we have fair elections? And one of the big problems was it didn't seem like there was a way that we could sustainably have an election over time that we were trying to get. Like it was really hard because like one of the things we kind of said is like every person that votes gets 5 votes for senators, but if Lehigh is predominantly white and there's predominant, like let's say the proportion of for race is equal to that of senators represented, then you have, like in that case, then like the election favors those that are part of like certain communities that like might be more familiar based on race. So that was one of the big problems, and we didn't know exactly how to solve that. So, and we have so many new faces on Senate, so I'd love everyone to kind of think about that, because I think that's a great area to work on. But making that something that we can keep in the future and clearly line out on paper is kind of the kind of the struggle with that. And if anyone else was in those meetings, I'm trying to think who was in those, but definitely like feel free to add on what I was saying. But yeah.
Thanks, Declan. You bring up a good point, and we'll definitely be able to like work on that in the future and just think about that. Does anybody experience what Declan just said differently or have anything to say in response to Declan's comment? Okay, so just to open up the floor once again, if does anybody have any last words about the main issues in Senate? If not, we're going to move on to a few more specific discussion questions.
One of the things that I'm just wondering about the last bullet point when it comes to lack of communication about activities and accomplishments. I know like Mike brought up a very good point, and I agree. The one thing I'm wondering is outside of that example and some other examples that are familiar or similar, do we have, what's the view on, do we do a bad job of communicating these, and what do people hear? Because like for me, I've been a senator my whole time at Lehigh, and I know everything we're doing, and everyone I talk about all the stuff I do as a senator. But I'm wondering like what you guys hear from people you meet like for the first time and stuff like that.
I saw a hand from Michael, but Michael, did you have something to say, or?
Just responding to Declan's point, I've heard several times this semester alone that from people outside of Senate that they think that the role of Senate is just allocating money to clubs. But what I think is an even bigger problem than that is the unfortunate reality that because D&I is a committee, unless you are on the D&I committee, it's not a central focus to your role as a senator, and that's a fundamental problem within our body. Because D&I isn't something that's just limited to one committee. It affects every single person on Senate and should be a focus of everyone on Senate. And it's why when we have these moments like the Black Lives Matter town hall or whatever other initiatives D&I tries to do, it gets very pushed into almost this tunnel where the same group of 5-10 senators is invested in it, is involved in it, and the rest of Senate really isn't involved in it. And that's partially on us for not doing a better job of getting everyone on Senate involved, but also comes down to each and every one of us on Senate trying to make, as senators, inclusion as part of what we strive to do. It shouldn't be something that's just limited to one committee and that you look at it and, well, I'm not in diversity inclusion, so I don't have to focus on these issues. They affect every single one of us, and that's what makes these moments so frustrating, because people have the privilege of being able to almost forget what's going on. They have the privilege of, well, after the Black Lives Matter town hall, it doesn't personally affect them anymore. So unfortunately, that once the noise fades into the background, so does the attention on the issue. And that's just a real deep-seated problem within Senate, where if it doesn't affect us personally, we don't do a good job of standing up, getting more involved, and really making it a focus of our entire body. And it shouldn't be limited to D&I. Diversity and inclusion should be everyone on Senate, and that should be our main goal.
Thanks, Michael. Victoria?
Right. I'm going to go ahead and hit that point again. Just because we're not on the D&I committee, like most of the senators here, doesn't mean that we should sit here silently and not try to talk about these issues. I believe in one of the slides you talked about something called calling out, I think it was, where it's okay to make mistakes and say the wrong thing. Nobody's going to judge you for it. We're here to learn. I encourage and expect all of the senators here to try to contribute something. There are a lot of points over here, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot more discussion later on, but this is a very, very important topic. And it's incredible that Ashley has undertaken the responsibility to, her and Divine to moderate this discussion. And we owe it to them to at least try. So give it a shot. Go ahead, just give it a shot. You'll be fine, I promise. Nobody's gonna laugh at you. You're gonna be totally fine. Give it a try.
Thanks, Victoria. I would also like to encourage general public, if you guys want to respond to what Declan just said, with like an external perspective almost.
I have a comment. So I'm wondering what Student Senate can do for its own education, given like the group's demographics, like considering that it's predominantly white people attending Lehigh. Like I'm wondering like what are the best practices that can be intentionally based on diversity for all the Student Senate? Like I'm wondering where's the like implicit bias training for the members of Student Senate? Where's the cultural competency? Like where are Student Senate members within their own learning? Because I think, so I'm not within Student Senate. Like one thing that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, that some of the, like there's like segments of Student Senate and the majority of those segments are like mainly Greek life, or like most representation is for Greek life. You can correct me if I'm wrong. So like, I'm just wondering like if Student Senate wants to lead by example and wants to challenge Lehigh, like the administration, how is this organization going to step up and like challenge its own like internal biases as for the whole organization?
Thank you. Jessi, if I'm saying that correctly.
You are, yeah.
Okay. Thanks for participating. Yes, Eve?
We were gonna wait till the end to kind of address this, but Senate is going to go through the training that the OMA provides, different offices and student organizations on campus. So that is just blanketly called anti-racism training, and there's 2 different sessions that they take you through, and I've specifically asked that it's tailored to Senate and being like student leaders on campus. So we're going to be going through that training that they provide. So that's going to include all of those, the implicit bias trainings and whatnot. I was going to speak about this at the end, but it felt like a good spot to kind of just bring it up and talk about it. So yeah, I've been working with Chad Williams to work on that. So.
Thanks, Eve. Joe?
Yeah, I'm curious, like, do you know how different the proportion of diversity is at Lehigh versus on Student Senate?
We don't have like the specific demographics, but there has been conversation about the ratio between the students at Lehigh and like the students on Student Senate. But I think the problem that most people were worried about was that regardless of like this ratio, like even though that Lehigh is a predominantly white institution, there are still people of color and minorities that are present in Lehigh, and they need to have a voice in Senate. And it's not about like a ratio issue, it's more of representation of like these minorities, because they are students at Lehigh. Thanks for asking, Joe.
Thank you for that point, Joe. And just going off of that, we're actually gonna have a little point / question about that later on, addressing diversity on Senate. So thank you.
Would anybody else from the general public or even senators like to speak about some of the main issues on Senate or any of like these points that are listed here? Okay, so we're going to move on to a few more specific discussion questions. I'm going to stop sharing so that we can just see everybody's face. All right, so something that we want to touch upon to gain a better understanding of the issues and problems that minorities face on campus and in Senate. What is something you wish people understood about your experiences as a minority at Lehigh? So this question is more directed towards minorities, and we would just encourage you to share anything that you would want anybody else to know about the issues and problems that you face as a minority at Lehigh, in Senate, either one. you guys can put into the chat or use the raise hand function.
And guys, I also just want to point out, obviously, there's only a few minorities here on the call, let alone campus. So if you guys have heard something from a minority about kind of their experience or kind of just putting yourself in their shoes, feel free to say that as well.
Hey guys, I just wanted to recall a story that I heard from one of my fellow Griffins back when I was a Griffin. He was a Black man and he talked about going to parties at Lehigh and having fellow students assume he did not go to Lehigh and kind of treat him differently at those parties. And I can't imagine how uncomfortable that might have felt. I know that's a part of Lehigh's experience.
Thanks, Hank.
Hank, you actually brought up a good point, kind of going off of that. I know myself and my roommates who are all minorities here at Lehigh. I know ever since kind of the first couple of weeks of freshman year for us was over, we kind of started getting denied into parties on like East Fifth and Hillside and stuff like that, which is why we kind of, I guess, why the natural migration for minority students kind of goes to the west side of campus, like Montclair and Carleton and things like that. Yeah, I know it's not anything huge, especially to me. I was never really a big party person, but that kind of like put the cap on it, saying, you know, I guess partying or kind of just relaxing and having fun on the weekends isn't really for me anymore since I'm not allowed to get into most of these parties. But yeah, that's just my personal experience.
I think, hey, I wanted to piggyback off of that, Divine. My name is Will Constant, former senator. I think, unfortunately, that experience of being like segregated to like the east side and the west side forces minority students to have a harder time branching out. You know, it's like kind of hard to make friends within the majority group when you can't even meet them at like a social event. Like I feel like a party is the best way to meet somebody, but if you can't even get past the door because of your skin, like you're not even gonna want to connect with people. And I know that's oftentimes why students of color don't want to go to these meetings of student senate or like go to different events, because like they get ostracized on a daily. So what's the point? Like that's kind of the frustration behind that.
Thanks for sharing. Mary?
Yeah, sorry, I go by Grace. I just never
sorry.
figured out how to change. No, I just never figured out how to change on Zoom. But yeah, kind of like Hank's story kind of brought up a story that came to my mind. So like I lived on a floor and there was a Black girl who I was hanging out with her one night, and I was about to, like, I was going to go to plans I had with some other friends, and I wanted her to come with me. And she expressed to me that she was so uncomfortable with the idea of like coming to a group of people. This was like mid-semester. She was just uncomfortable with going because she thought she would be the only Black girl, and she would have been. But I just was so taken aback by the fact that she was so uncomfortable already, and it was only halfway through the semester. And it really kind of upset me and made me take a step back and think about like what kind of school this is that someone doesn't feel comfortable going to an event. So yeah.
Thanks, Grace. I actually would like to bring up an experience that I heard of. So this is from like a past senator, but so I'm going to explain like an experience she felt as a minority within Senate. She felt like Senate was very cliquey in that, as Will and Divine brought up, it was really hard to make friends with people that didn't identify as like minorities or like people of color. And there was some segregation in that sense too. So if anybody has ever felt that, please feel free to also share your personal experiences. But I have a few hands here. Taiji.
So I can say personally for myself and a couple of my teammates, it got to so we're all second years now, but during our first and second semester, it got to the point of us not wanting to wear our white book bags around campus because it's like we have that feeling of having to prove ourselves that we belong here, like in the classroom instead of just on the field or on the court, that we have to kind of prove ourselves to the rest of the student body that we can do the same work as regular students here. And it's just like, as a minority, you just stick out, and a lot of people assumes that are automatically a part of athletics. I can even know when I first met Will, I honestly thought that he was a part of the athletic team because it's not too many of us here on campus. So it was just the fact that we all have that feeling of having to prove ourselves that we belong here outside of like the real reason why we came here.
Thanks, Taiji. Michael?
The first thing is not my story. It's a story I heard from Ben Santos, who was a former senator. And this was during his freshman year at Lehigh, where it was something as simple as it was like 1 a.m. and he went down to warm up some ramen because he was hungry and up late working on stuff. And one of the like just Lehigh security comes up to him and asks to see his ID. And he didn't have it on him. It was up in his room. And even after he went to go get his ID, the security guard asked if he was a townie. And the fact that something like that is just like that we assume that if there's a Hispanic student on campus that they're a townie, and that security would approach them in a way that they would not approach many other students because they look like they're would be a resident of the South Side, is beyond frustrating. And it's just really sad to think about. And last year on Senate, another thing that I noticed was when it came to D&I and Say It Out Loud, which was an amazing event, the number of senators who showed up to that event compared to some of the other events that Senate put on through the year was comparatively much lower. And the majority of the senators who showed up to the Say It Out Loud event were either on the D&I committee or the few senators of color that we have on Senate. And this goes back to this, almost like I brought up earlier, this notion that if I'm not on D&I, if I'm not a student of color on Senate, that these issues really aren't my issues. And it's just really frustrating from that aspect as a senator, especially when you're trying to raise awareness of these issues, if you're trying to promote change and change the culture without Senate, because half of the job is showing up, and we're even failing sometimes on that, just simple part of just showing up. And like the fact that Divine even had to tell people to put their video on during a discussion like this isn't just a normal like discussion that doesn't apply to people. This is something that affects us all. And the fact that really people are kind of checking out and turning off their video, it's unacceptable as a body. This is not this, and this has been emblematic of not just Senate, but the majority of the Lehigh body. It's being in Greek life, whenever I bring up the systemic things that keep students of color out of Greek life, it kind of gets pushed aside, even within my own fraternity when I bring it up, where it's just like, yeah, we'll look at it down the line, but it's not a concern right now. And it's that constant, because these issues don't affect people directly, that we can just push it down the road, that it'll be solved eventually, and that it's such a systemic problem that, well, we can't do anything. Everywhere in Lehigh suffering with this issue, so why should we address it? And when we have that mentality of this issue is just too widespread, too broad for people to tackle, it gets really exhausting being a senator of color, a person of color on this campus who's trying to change that culture, because you constantly get met up with this indifference. And it's frustrating because I don't have the ability to be indifferent to these issues, because whether or not I choose to, these issues find me in one way or another on campus all the time. Whether it be on the fact that the only time in my classes, I have maybe 1 or 2 other students of color at most per each class. Whether it be in Senate that we have very few students of color and most of them are on the D&I committee. It's the fact that we have these cliques, we bury ourselves into these groups where it just like puts all the load on students of color. And unless we do a better job as a body of being an ally for this change, it's never going to happen. Because the only time that change really happens is it takes more than just the minority coalition on campus to push for these change. We need strong allyship because we need your voice, like the support of your voices for the administration to even take us seriously.
Thanks a lot, Michael. Does anybody else want to say anything in response to what Michael just said? I have hands raised from Grace and Taiji, but are those just from the last time you guys participated?
Yes, sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, it was.
I just wanted to quickly add that the word allyship, I think, is cool. I think one problem that a lot of people in the POC community have is that people say they're allies, but it's like there's not that ride or die mentality. And when I say that, I mean like when we're not in the room, do you really like still be an ally? I've heard from students all the time, like when they make connections with people who aren't of color, like white people, and these offensive stuff are said when they're not around. Sometimes the people that you think is your ally won't even speak up on your behalf. I think for Senate, a lot of students would like to see a ride or die mentality, not just from D&I, from all of y'all. Like if something's said, or if one of the senators says something, or if you're a senator and you're in the classroom and someone says something, you should be ready to be on a ride or die mentality to speak against that, because you're an elected official representing all students. And that was kind of the thing that I always wanted as a senator, to see that happen. I'm no longer there, but I hope that's something you guys can accomplish and now or in the near future of instilling that in everyone. Just being someone who speaks up. It doesn't even take much. It's just stepping up for someone else who feels like they constantly have to go through that. I think that's the biggest thing you could do for a lot of students on this campus, is speaking up, and be proactive. Don't wait for BSU or LSA to put out a statement. Be proactive, reach out to them. And I think one thing I did appreciate was with the town hall, people reached out, people wanted to get things off the ground. It was a collaboration between Senate and BSU. Do more of that. Don't wait till another Black man has to get shot for us to do that. Let's be proactive with it.
Thanks, Will. I guess kind of going off of that, another experience I heard of from somebody in Senate was that they didn't feel supported in making change within Senate. So even though that this was like a diversity and inclusion issue that this person wanted to tackle, they didn't have the means to be able to do it. And so that kind of goes along with like the whole allyship thing. We as senators need to be able to support each other in making changes within this specific topic of diversity and inclusion. And that's like a problem that we also need to fix and just be aware of. Would anybody else like to mention their experiences as a minority in Senate or at Lehigh, or one that they've heard?
I wasn't gonna say this, but I feel like I should. So for me, I'm from South America, and a lot of times people just completely forget that I'm Latina and say things about Latino people, and then they remember that I am, and they're like, oh, it's okay, you're basically American. And I always find that that's really hurtful, because just because you don't look a certain way, I still am Latina. So
yeah, I can second that, because I'm half Jewish, half Hispanic, but I'm white. So people will just say really racist stuff towards Hispanic people, or they'll say really anti-Semitic stuff, and then just forget that I'm not I mean, I am white, but I'm not like a European white person. So they'll just forget that they're saying something racist and be like, oh my God, I'm sorry, I'm just joking. But it's and another thing here that I've noticed at Lehigh is just the cliques here. And I came from a very liberal town, so it's there was racism, but it wasn't as blatant as I've found it here. I've found people that I've overheard conversations, and it's just it's way too open, and people are way too comfortable with saying racist things that most people would think oh, they're not, but it's that's really racist when you put it that way, or it's a really racist thing to say. And it's hard to describe those things, but it's little things people say that it's almost like they don't understand it, but they're saying it anyway, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Thanks for sharing, Yael and Adam.
I just wanted to chip in real quick and just say thank you for Yael and Adam for saying those things. I really am happy you mentioned it. You know, kind of circles back to what Will was saying with allyship, because you know, it also circles back to the calling out and calling in that I mentioned earlier. We just need to make sure us as a Senate, us as a whole student body, you know, we have to make sure we are calling in people and not just really being allies, but also advocating for other people. You know, there's a big difference. There's a difference between saying you're an ally and then saying you're an advocator and advocating for people when they don't have a voice or when they're not present or something. You know what I mean? So I think that's really important, because you know we're not really going to get anywhere as a society, let alone Lehigh's minority and diversity and inclusion issue, if we're not calling people out and advocating for people. And I also want to bring up the point, at least about Senate specifically, is that I feel like a lot of times, a lot of real pressing issues are overlooked. You know, I can give an example of, I remember last semester, no, not last semester, last year, this was last semester, I believe in the spring before we all went remote in March, but there were a lot of issues and talks about the parking issues. And obviously I'm a little biased, you know, I don't have a car, so that issue isn't really too pressing to me, but at the same time, there was definitely a lot of more pressing issues that needed and should have been addressed. And I feel like it's kind of in a bit disrespectful that, you know, there's other diversity and inclusion issues on campus and Senate that are being neglected because we want to talk about parking and different issues that aren't as pressing. I'm obviously not trying to take away from those other issues, but I feel like we need to have more of a priority and what issues we are talking about. And I feel like that's kind of internal to the Senate and internal to everybody that's on this call.
Would anybody else like to go off of what Divine said?
You know what? I'm going to jump in again. I chaired the D&I Committee last year, and because of what happened with the whole quarantine situation, and even before that, our committee sort of fell apart. It's understandable, you know, people they had other things to worry about. They had to go home. They had to deal with other problems, whatever. The D&I Committee at one point was down to 3 people, me and Divine and one other person. And then I hate to put this out there, but I repeatedly asked for help last year over and over again. As I said, you know, senators, please come to my meetings, give me advice. I was a first-year senator last year chairing the committee by myself, asking for help, and I didn't receive any. I was looking for support. I needed somebody to tell me what to do. It was really, really hard, you know, to see all the other committees kind of still functioning, and then everybody kind of just forgot about D&I. Even when I directly said over and over again, you know, please show up at the D&I meetings, please, you know, spend 30 minutes, come to our meeting, tell me what you think, let's talk. Nobody ever showed up. So I feel like that is a pretty clear example of where our priorities lie, wherein if the issue doesn't directly affect you, you're not gonna show up, literally. So that is something to keep in mind for the rest of this year and then for the future. Just 2 cents there.
Thanks, Victoria. Declan?
Yeah, I want to build off something that Adam brought up. So Adam brought up one of the points that Adam brought up. Adam brought up the point where like some students make comments and they kind of know it might be a little wrong, but they don't understand the whole backing behind that. And I think one of the scary things is I'm afraid that a lot of students at Lehigh don't learn about that through their whole experience. And like I think I've said it before in Senate, and I know I've definitely said in the past, but one of the things about being a student is it's everything, especially as senators, like learning from this experience. And like one of the things that Mike brought up the story from Ben earlier. I remember hearing that in GP and thinking like, I didn't understand stuff like that happened. And that was the first time I've heard someone I've seen in real life tell a story like that. And it affects me a lot because I hearing that perspective from someone I see and someone I know was crazy. But I don't feel a lot of our students in general at Lehigh gain those experiences, and maybe that's something we push for. But I heard that and I thought that was important to bring up. But yeah, I don't mean to talk too long.
Thanks, Declan. Victor?
Yeah, I want to build off of what Victoria was saying in terms of like Senate's priorities not always being straight. I call back to last year. Like we had two separate instances, one of them being like the Greek pause, and we were able to like mobilize the entire full Senate, create a working group and like get a Greek resolution going. And then the House 89 egging that was earlier on in the year. I think it was House 89, but it was a first generation House. And like we talked a little bit about it in Senate, but then after that, like we didn't really mobilize, we didn't really put all of our effort into like holding the school accountable, catching the people who did it. And I just feel like that kind of goes back to like how we as individual senators, like we need to, and like I'm like a part of this, like we all need to like every single time like we put on the senator hat, we need to constantly work with like diversity and inclusion issues, and it shouldn't just be isolated to that committee. And on like a second point, like after the murder of George Floyd and the killings of like Breonna Taylor and kind of like the Black Lives Matter movement that really became prominent like this summer, I feel like a lot of senators, a lot of people were like really energetic, but like after that, and this also is going back to Michael's original point, how like after that, like Senate didn't really follow up. We didn't really continue that momentum. And I feel like it shouldn't take a tragedy to put all of our effort and all of our energy into it. So I applaud Ashley and Divine and the rest of the D&I committee, because I feel like these conversations, like this could be a start for a new chapter of Senate, a chapter of like inclusivity. But I also think that these conversations need to be a part of every single meeting and every single time that we're talking about the inner workings of Senate.
Thanks, Victor. Ben?
Yeah, so really agree with Victor, what Victoria was saying. Also, I think time is like our most finite resource, especially as college students. And you see a lot of people just not putting in that time to, do the things that they say. It's like your long-term goals and your short-term actions aren't really aligning all the time. Everyone has time, take 20 seconds to share an Instagram story, sure, but it's like following up with administrators, coming to these events, like doing the things, attending things, and taking your time out of your day to actually align with the goals you say goes farther than anything else. I remember talking to Michael earlier this semester about the problems in Greek life and the diversity in Greek life, and Michael had these amazing ideas, and the time that would go into them was really something. And Michael, props to you, man. You're a very smart guy. But my whole time I was thinking to myself, it's like how many people are gonna give the time for this? I think sympathy is an issue at this school. I think a lot of people are aware of the problems going on, but how many people can relate and how many people will give their time to an issue that is, and I think that says something about us as Lehigh. We're not like a lot of schools that are, super progressive and rallying and attending things. That's not us, and that's an issue. And that starts with the school's identity and the school's leadership, which is us. So I think, a resolution for all of us is to give that time to be more sympathetic. I was saying earlier this week, I don't think our problem is that we don't do things. I think our problem is that we don't know what to do. I think we see these issues, and the first step always I think we always come short of the first step, because it's like, oh, I have a test, I can't go, I have a test. Or,
I'm getting so off topic here, but these are my thoughts. And I think time and sympathy are the two things that we really lack.
Thanks so much, Ben. Michael?
Yeah, Victor brought up the discussion we had about the egging of, I forget what house it was, but I remember, and the part of this was just being a first-year senator, but it was a very intimidating atmosphere where I remember that meeting where a lot of people spent time explaining away the egging and how it was not like like finding ways to explain it away as like, well, eggings happen all the time and things like that. And as a first-year senator, although I like strongly disagreed with that and thought we should be doing more, being a new student in Senate, being one of the few students of color in Senate, just hearing that almost dialogue that we were having that day of explaining it away created a very just a scary atmosphere for me to even want to speak up and give my perspective on that, because it just felt like even if I did speak up, that especially as a new senator, that I might risk being ostracized for voicing that opinion. And we also saw it with the vandalism of the Jewish Center and I think there was one of the Pride Center too, where it's just like on that we were much more very open that yes, there was a problem there, but our immediate reaction was, well, we're student Senate, what can we really do about it? And that's very similar to what Ben was saying, where it's just like our biggest problem sometimes is just we don't even know what our first step should be. And that was just another very like concerning and intimidating moment where just like in the face of a lot of these things, we almost abdicated our leadership because our immediate response is, well, what can Senate do? And it just creates a lot of intimidation that you have to get over as a new senator to really be able to speak your experience, because it's such a rare and not really a shared experience on Senate.
Thanks, Michael. Max?
Yeah, so I just want to share some of my experiences at Lehigh, and I'm myself is an international student from China, and I think I want to point it out that the racism is not just related to your race, it's sometimes related to your nation and country. Like during last year's Lehigh game, they had the banners hanging on their apartment just next to the campus. It says Lafayette stands with China, and we all found that racist and very offensive. So I was on the Chinese Student Association, so we reported to the school, and we didn't actually find a way to report to the Senate. Then the school had the policeman to get down the banner, and the Office of Diversity and the International Office made an united like statement to denounce the action, but we didn't hear anything from the Senate, and we thought we should have some voice representing the student body to just voice up to against the racism. And also during this year, spring, I think, just after the breakout of the virus, when the president is addressing the COVID-19 as Chinese virus all the time. And even on campus, one of my very good friends working on campus, and some students in a car driving through him, just shouted at him coronavirus when they saw his an Asian student, and that was very racist too. And I just think maybe just like Victoria said, I didn't feel the D&I committee existed like in supporting such issue. So I don't know if we have the way to report that kind of issues to Senate, but I just feel just very disconnected to the students in it at the time.
Thank you so much for sharing, Max. Kate?
Okay, so one thing I wanted to touch on quickly, and I'm a first-year senator as well as a first-year Lehigh student, so I don't really know that much about like what Senate has gone through in the past, but something that I thought of as everyone else was speaking during this discussion is, I was thinking, I don't know, maybe something or just a general idea that Senate could work on is for any individual person. And again, this isn't like just for Senate. I guess this is kind of just everywhere in society, but I feel that people only, and I'm sure I'm guilty of this too, but we only seem invested in fixing an issue when everyone else around us seems to be invested in fixing that issue. Kind of like Victor touched on how the Black Lives Matter movement flared up this summer. And it seems that these types of social movements, whether they're as prominent as the Black Lives Matter movement or smaller ones, we kind of rise and fall depending on how like society rises and falls with these types of movements and events. And I think the only way we're actually going to create substantial change is when any individual, any given person doesn't stop like fighting, and whether it's for big movements or whether it's simply taking a, what is it called, calling in type action, something as small as that. As long as we keep doing that, even when we don't see everyone else around us doing that, I think that's really the only time when we're going to see any change. Because if we as individuals only want to create change when we're afraid we're going to be left out because everyone else claims they're wanting to make change too, nothing's actually going to get done. And this kind of relates to what several of the other senators said, that there have been issues in Senate that have been important temporarily, or we thought have been important, and then all of a sudden they kind of disappear. And we have to, and again, like this is only my first time on Senate, but I really think that in order for us to improve, we have to work on like fighting so hard to be consistent with fighting for the issues that not just matter to us, but matter to the rest of Senate.
Thanks, Kate. I'll have Adam be the last one for this topic.
Yeah, thank you, Ashley. I just want to extend on what everyone says around here. I feel like as student organizations, we shouldn't take like a specific political standpoint like in any argument. Like we're not supposed to intentionally stand on the Republican side or Democrat side. And to build on an example, like Max mentioned a good example that many Chinese students faced last year about the Lee Love banner thing. And then I feel like Lee Love is a university's event, and like we shouldn't represent like a certain political standpoint. I mean, I'm support of freedom of speech, but I think only on an individual basis. And I don't think like as an organization we shouldn't like intervene with others' affair. Also, I believe that different minorities are facing different problems. Like, I mean, I was with an African roommate during the summer, and he was arrested just because he sat on the bench in the park. Like, as an Asian, I also face many problems, such as, because there's a lot of teacher assistants who are Chinese, and then I just feel like Asian students are like, some people call it compliments, but we are just like deemed as very nerdy. And I also like have many other friends from different minorities. I feel like we should approach issues with different minorities from many perspectives.
Thanks for sharing, Adam. So to kind of shift gears, we're going to start to conclude our conversation by just asking the question, what types of changes would you guys like to see in Senate regarding to tackle the D&I issues that are in Senate? So I encourage the general public to give us some insights, as well as just senators, if you guys also have some changes that you guys would like to see in Senate regarding the diversity and inclusion issues. I have a hand from Max, but is that just from the last time you participated?
Yes, sorry about that.
No problem.
I don't know how to raise the hand thing. I'm sorry if I'm in.
Oh, no, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I was wondering like how can the rest of Student Senate, like outside of the D&I Committee, like be held accountable to center diversity and inclusion? Because like diversity means like multiple voices, like multiple people joining in on a conversation. And if the Student Senate is predominantly like white people, then like most white people, or I would say, well, it depends on like ethnicity, background, whatever. But I guess my point is that like white people have the privilege to step away from these problems. Like it's really, what it sounds like to me is like it's really like a white person problem, like being able to be dismissive, being able to be defensive, and like the privilege to look away, like to not consider what you're saying a microaggression is. Like I feel like most Lehigh students who are white at Lehigh like say stuff that's offensive and othering and don't know it. So I'm wondering like what can the rest of how can the rest of Student Senate be held accountable to their behavior? And like obviously the Lehigh as an institution like controls who enters, who's accepted, and all of that. But at the same time, like I don't think it's going to be like in a snap, like the demographics of Lehigh are going to change. And obviously that's not all on Student Senate, like you guys can call for it, but at the same time it's like how is white privilege going to be held accountable? Like how are the white students going to show up? Like you guys mentioned talking about getting more people of color on Student Senate, but are the majority of white students going to be able to be culturally competent? Like that's my question, at least, because race can talk about like not only like physical, but also like nationality and ethnicity. So that's what I'm wondering.
Thanks for bringing that up, Jessi. Declan?
Yeah, the one thing that's interesting, and I think this is probably something for Ben with bylaws to look into, is the school-wide election for a president is interesting. I wonder, like, I don't know why it, like, I see why it isn't, but I also see why it should be. So I'm wondering what the bylaws say exactly for that, because I think that could also bring a lot more students into what Senate does. But then also just following up on the last couple of comments, I think like, well, when the Artists for Change event was under Senate, like we probably should have had that be a required event for senators, because I remember like Ben and I were there, and I was sitting, and I think I was probably sitting with Mike as well and some other senators at that point. But yeah, like I was surprised there weren't as many senators there. So yeah, that's all for me.
Thanks, Declan. Victor?
Yeah, I guess this is also a bylaws thing, but I think bylaws is like I guess like a constitution, kind of confusing. But I think the way that our constituents are broken up and how we have certain proportions of students, like Greek life is like 20 people and like on campus is 10. And I just think we could reevaluate that and like take a second look at how that's broken down, because just because like students of color are underrepresented on a university level does not mean they need that equal proportion on Senate. If anything, they should have a larger representation, and Senate should be a way to like amplify what their needs are because they're underrepresented on a university level. So I think we need more I'm trying to find the right words, but I think we just need more spaces for these students, because Senate is supposed to be the body that represents all students. And right now, like when we have like these equal proportions, we're not representing all students. We're representing the students who have the largest majority at the university at the moment, and the students who make up the largest population. And I just feel like that's flawed. And I think that's a lot of issues that Senate is having, is because our makeup of the body is flawed in many ways. So I feel like that is definitely something that we can evaluate over the year and possibly change. I just feel like I think that would be really helpful.
Thanks, Victor. Alyssa?
I'm really confused on how to be an effective ally, like during the committee and stuff, and I don't really know, like, where do you like draw the line for how much you should, like, I don't even know how to say it. Like, where's the difference between being an ally and having like white savior complex? And also, like, how can you be sensitive to race when you're working on issues such as parking and stuff? Like, because I feel like everything can kind of be tied back to it, but I have no idea like where to start.
Thanks for bringing that up, Alyssa. So there are a few things that, as Eva mentioned, that we're going to do like the anti-racism workshop and everything. So hopefully with those steps that are taken currently and like in the future, we can finally start to find a place that we can start to just be more aware of like these issues. But thank you for bringing that up. Michael?
What I really want to just see is more actionable, like real, like steps from Senate, whether it's like in the future, calling on the administration to take specific steps to make our school more of an anti-racist institution, or like something we discussed during admin this week when it came to COVID, was utilizing the brown and white to get our message out there to the student body and put more pressure on the university when it came to COVID issues. We should explore that for diversity and inclusion too. Maybe we need to put an op-ed in the brown and white about how the next president should be from a diverse background and should better represent minority voices, and use that platform to truly speak out. Like we need to take bigger, more bolder steps and more actionable just change, because talking about it internally is a great first step. Having a committee focus on it and maybe moving it to a standing committee is another good step internally. But we also need to recognize that we've been given this great responsibility where when we have the opportunity to affect the administration's response to a lot of things. We've seen it with the housing crisis a few years ago, with the Greek life pause, with COVID, and we can use that. The president listens to us, the administrators hear our voices, and we need to use that voice to call on for more actionable change instead of using it so sparingly. It should be something that is much more common on Senate to take those kind of actions rather than a once in a blue moon thing, or else we will never shake this perception that Senate just allocates funds and talks about clubs.
Thanks, Michael. We'll have Eve be the last one for this topic, and Hank is going to send in a link for any other suggestions, and also just a poll based on, would you guys be interested in having a minority / BIPOC constituency in Senate? So can everyone just go to the chat and make sure you fill out that poll, but we'll just have Eve finish us off here.
Thanks, Ashley. Can you hear me? Oh, okay, there we go. Yeah, so a couple things. I think that structurally, Senate is suffering because of the way that we are structured. I think D&I needs to be a standing committee. I don't know why it's not already. That should just be a consistent mission of Senate. And so that's something we're going to take a look at with the bylaws. And then the other thing I think that is probably the one of the bigger issues I've seen firsthand is the elections process. So the elections process boils down to almost how many votes can you get. So if you have the ability to send that link to get votes into many group chats, because you're in like a sorority or you're in a fraternity, like that just guarantees your spot like instantly, depending on whatever constituent you're in. And so I want to revisit the elections process because I think that it allows people who already have like that use of privilege, like to get on Senate. And then we have a lot of similar voices on Senate. We don't have a diverse voice at all. And I saw that happen with the spring. I saw that happen with first year elections. Not to say that everyone on here isn't totally amazing in their role, but we are lacking a diverse voice. And I think that that's one of the biggest issues we've seen. So instead of the elections process being a vote that gets sent out, I think we need to take another look at constituents. I think that the way that it's split up right now is representative of, yes, the Lehigh population, but I think that maybe it shouldn't be necessarily the Lehigh population. It should be what Lehigh should be, like an idealized version. And like we can create that. So I think moving forward, we can do that. And I definitely think one of the biggest issues we have is just an ally issue. I think what Will said really resonated with me, how we have to be more ride or die. I mean, the biggest thing that comes to mind is last year, like we jump on Greek life issues. It's just something that we do because we have a strong fraternity constituency of 10, as well as a sorority constituency of 10. That's 20 people to the 55 we have here. And so we jump on those issues. And with the egging specifically, I think about often how I didn't call out my fraternity friends, how I was sitting in Sinclair and I wasn't like, okay, so go to IFC and, you know, tell them to stop egging houses. And no one did that. And I didn't stand up, and I knew that that was happening, and we kind of just brushed it off. And so I think that we are all suffering from this allyship issue. And I think that that can be a part of the training moving forward. But those are just the three big issues I wanted to touch on and I want to see change this year.
Thanks so much, Eve. So that's going to finish up our conversation about the changes. Just to reiterate, the form is in the chat regarding would you guys be interested in having a minority / BIPOC constituency? Because that was something that was mentioned in the survey and in this discussion currently. So just to kind of finish up our conversation, I'm going to share my screen again. So I have gathered, the D&I Committee and I have gathered a couple of resources just for Student Senate, but also the general public. These resources are going to help tackle diversity and inclusion issues on campus. And some of these are just from online, but some of these resources are evident also on campus. So just to quickly go through each one, the implicit bias test is just to kind of get a sense of where you are at in terms of diversity and inclusion kind of opinions. This is something you can find online. Next, we have resources that are on campus. This is the Office of Multicultural Affairs, Diversity Peer Educators, and the Department of Sociology and Anthropology have created videos of students who share their personal experiences of racist instances that happen on Lehigh's campus. And then we have the Guidelines for Effective Dialogue. So I'm going to be sharing these resources with all of Student Senate, as well as posting them on the Senate Instagram, just so everyone has access to these resources. I would also like to mention that Hank is going to send another survey out into the chat. It's going to just be if anyone didn't have the chance to speak, as we are in like a time limit, just go ahead and fill out that survey. That survey also has these resources listed in the introduction, and that is like another way that you guys can access these resources.
So what we want to do going forward is we want to use the responses from the survey that that D&I sent out, as well as the information from today that we got. We plan to make a written statement to a written public statement to the university, and that'll include the current efforts to make Senate a more diverse and inclusive organization, as well as the changes in Senate that we want to implement in the future. So just quickly adding to that, obviously I think Victor and Ethan brought it up in the chat. They brought up great points, as well as the idea of having a minority constituency as far as elections. But I think as well, we need to like kind of like preliminary to that is somehow Senate has to find a way to I guess make the minority group on campus want to join Senate in the first place. You know, just me being a minority on campus and knowing other minorities, and I've talked to Will and my roommates about it. You know, not that many minorities want to join Senate in the first place. So obviously, this is a great idea to help establish minorities as their own constituency. We kind of still need to get a push to make minorities feel welcome and want to join Senate. So Eve kind of talked about the anti-racism workshop with Ome that we're working on. Eve, I don't know if you want to add on that again, or we could just pass it to Hank. To Ben about establishing D&I as a standing committee.
Yeah, so the workshop, so I'm working with, like I said previously, working with Chad Williams to make this happen. This would happen during our full Senate meetings, most likely in November. It's still being kind of worked on. But if you have any suggestions, so the way that it works is it's kind of an online training module. So everyone's going to have to go through an online training module. You'll get the link. You'll do that on your own free time. But then we come together and he is going to facilitate kind of just like a discussion. And so if anyone has any suggestions as to what should be included in that discussion, feel free to reach out to me and we can kind of try to see if we can add that in. But yeah, that's in the works.
Ben, did you want to talk about establishing D&I as a standing committee?
Oh, sure. Sorry, I've been writing notes. That can be the next bylaw. I mean, I'll bring it up to anyone, like I'll throw it in the chat. We could do it this week. There's no reason why it can't be. We can establish a standing committee. We can give it all the same rules in terms of election processes as, club affairs and student outreach. Student outreach standing, I should know that. I have questions like with the elections thing that I think we would need to talk about as a Senate. But as of right now, like I'll as soon as this meeting ends, I'll throw something in the bylaws channel, and we can get to work on that this week and try to have it done by, next Tuesday. So yeah, I don't see why not.
Thanks so much, Ben. So I would just like to thank everyone for participating and just listening to this candid conversation that we were having. I hope that the senators here, like me included, have gained a better understanding of like the diversity inclusion issues that are present within Senate. And a lot of us mentioned here that it shouldn't be just closed off to the D&I committee, but it should be a present issue that all of us as senators should be actively tackling. So I hope that through this conversation, we were able to understand that and realize that from our position as senators. And I would just like to thank the general public for stopping in this conversation and providing us insights to external perspectives. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.